Hey everybody, Yankee here. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard that recently the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that suppressors, some people call them silencers, under the law are not arms. Now, if you're like me, when you heard this, you went, yay! Wait, boo! Wait, how am I supposed to feel about this? I don't know if this is something I should be happy about or sad about. I'm confused, which is not that unusual for me. But after doing some research, it turns out, well, I guess it depends on where you live. That's going to have a lot to do with it, whether it's good news or bad news, and how good or bad is it. And before we start talking about that, let's have a word from our sponsor. Surprise, it's me. We don't take sponsorship, and if we did, I doubt anybody else would want to sponsor this channel but me. So I wanted to come on here and let everyone know we've got some new designs up over on my Shopify store. Some new Pro 2A, usually whimsical designs. If you want any of them, go on over. There's a link in the upper corner of this video where you can go purchase them, or any of the old stuff like what I'm wearing right now. There's tons of designs over there. There's something for everybody. And every time you buy one of these items, you help support TYMP. That's the Yankee Marshall Posse Pistol Project. And what it does is every month we choose 4 families who otherwise can't afford to exercise their Second Amendment rights to get that firearm to protect themselves, their home, their family. We provide that item for them through the generosity of my viewers. That's where the money goes when you buy merchandise. And I think this program is more important than ever because of the cost of living. There's more people that can't afford to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Elderly people living on fixed income, single mothers, new families, just all kinds of people that are barely buying food, much less exercising their Second Amendment rights and keeping their families and their homes safe. So we step in and we help them out. This month, we're going to be announcing 6 families as winners. Next month also, we'll be announcing that on the 15th. So pay attention if you've registered up till now. If you haven't registered, go over to my website, tympistolproject.com, and register. You can also buy merchandise from that link, or become a patron or a Subscribe Star member and help support the programs we run, like TYMP. All right, now back to what I mean by it really depends on where you live, whether this is going to be good or bad. Well, since these are not arms, since suppressors are not arms, all the laws the federal government has that regulate them would be invalid, be null and void, because they don't have the right to regulate just regular items like this. They couldn't do it. So that would all go away. The NFA, the tax stamps, the extra fees would all go away on suppressors. That would be awesome. But also, since they're not arms, they wouldn't be protected under the Second Amendment. That means if you live in a state where they're banned already, or you live in a state where they would ban them, like where I live in Washington, as soon as Bloomberg heard this, he'd shoot blood out his butt, because he'd pop his cork and he would phone up the people in Olympia and say, you got to do something about these. We can't let these people have these things. They're horrible. They're scary. I got to get rid of them. So if you live in a state that's already banned them, or a state that would, well, they'd be able to, because they're not protected under the Second Amendment. You'd have no argument for that. All the cases in the courts now that are suing these states, saying we should have suppressors because they're arms and they're protected under the Second Amendment, would be moot. They'd have no basis if this actually became the law of the land. However, if you lived in a state that wasn't going to ban them, well, then they'd be like, going out and buying oil filters. It would be cheap. They're not hard to make. They're not expensive to make. The reason they're so expensive is because it's hard to sell them because of all the regulations and all the tax stamps on them, etc. So if they were just something you could just make and put out there, be a lot more plentiful, a lot cheaper in states that didn't ban them. Now you might say, well, that's good for those people, but what about people in states like Washington, California, Illinois, etc.? Well, if they ban them, but they're not arms now, well, they're not going to be things that are controlled. If you go on vacation to a state that sells them, buy yourself a bucket load of them, take them home with you. Now you're going to say, well, that's illegal. Well, they're going to come check and they're going to find out you didn't have these before. Well, the only way they'd be able to find out you didn't have them before is if you don't have a tax stamp for them. And why are they going to come after you for a tax stamp when they don't have just cause to do so? When they no reason for them to suspect you're doing anything illegal? If you're just buying them and putting in your safe like I do, just in case things go bad and you need them for a time when suppressors would be very important, which we all know would be zombie apocalypse, you're going to be able to shoot as quietly as possible. So you need them for then. But, you don't need them any other day. Unless you're shooting on your own property and you want to be quiet for your neighbors. How you going to get caught anything with that? So these would be as easy to get as magazines. Like in the state of Washington, you can't have regular standard capacity magazines, or high capacity as they call them. But, you drive right over to Oregon and buy them, bring them home. And since they're not a serialized item, it's really hard to prove that you didn't have them before. Also, suppressors wouldn't be serialized anymore if they're not arms. So it's going to be really hard. Like if I live in the state of Washington and suppressors tomorrow were unregulated, and it took them 3 weeks to pass a bill saying suppressors are banned in Oregon or Washington. Well, unless they say everybody who owns any would have to turn them in, which that never flies. That's death for a bill. Because the government would have to buy them back, and plus people don't like laws when they say anything you bought legally you have to turn in now. That doesn't fly in most places. That wouldn't even fly here. So if I had that 2 weeks between the time they were unregulated and they passed that law, well, who's to say I didn't buy 50 of them? There'd be no way if they're not serialized anymore for them to prove it. So like I said, depending on where you live, this could be good or bad. It's good because now they're just a thing that you can buy. Like I said, an oil filter, a muffler. Go out, buy one. If you live in a state that doesn't ban them, they'll be cheaper than ever, easier to get than ever. You'll be able to walk in today and walk out tomorrow with them, which should make them cheaper. So that would be awesome. If you live in a state that bans them, if they're already banning them, well, if you want one, you can go get one, but you just better be careful. I've always said, disobey these unconstitutional laws. And then if they come after you, well, then you got grounds to sue. Because if you get caught in a state with a suppressor and they're like, those are illegal, you're going to jail, well, then you've got grounds to sue against that law. Why am I a criminal because I own one of these? How are these dangerous to anybody? Or is that just crap that you like to use to demonize people? So if you're in a state that already bans them, that would be your best case scenario. Keep it quiet. If you live in a state like mine where they're not banned yet, but they would be shortly after they were available, well, who's to say you didn't buy a ton of them in that time? It'd be really hard for them to prove you didn't. And if you live in a state that is, where freedom sort of exists still, at least in this way, you'd be able to buy as many of them as you want. It'd be cheap. You can buy them, send them to your friends in states where they can't get them. That would be illegal, and I don't recommend that, but, some people would do it if they're good people. If they want me to like them, I guess I should say. So that's what it is. It's both good and bad. It's not one of those all good, all bad situations. This comes with some good news, but it also comes with some very bad news. Like I said, if they're not regulated anywhere they're legal, they'll be plentiful, easy to get, and cheap. Where they are banned or will be banned, well, that's a different story, and you'll have to deal with, whatever case you're living under. But like I said, neither good nor bad entirely. It's kind of both. And as I said, it depends on where you live.